The next question is the chairperson of the Environment and Public Works Committee, Senator Barbara Boxer.
Hey, Barbara Boxer.
Great to see you here, Mr. President, and thanks for doing this, and thanks for meeting with the Republican caucus at the House. I thought it was very instructive for the American people. As Senator Feinstein and I tell our colleagues every day, California's hurting. I know that you're aware of that. And they really want to see a fighting spirit in us, that we are committed, even though we've had some political setbacks, to get the job done. And I just want to tell you, as I watched you during the State of the Union, listen to you, what you are doing now is really important to the folks that I represent, because you're showing that fighting spirit no matter what the adversity is, and you're coming up with specific proposals. So I want to ask you about small business. We all know they're the job creators. 64% of new jobs over the last 15 years came from small business. Your new proposal, which does mirror a couple of people, I look at Senator Merkley, I know Senator Warner and others, we've worked hard on this, for community banks to lend. Mm-hmm. Can you do that by executive order? Because my understanding is you can use some of the TARP funds that were paid back and use that, or those funds that have not been used. Can you use that and get this going by executive order, or do you need us to put that program into a jobs bill? And second, are you using your influence as much as you can to get the big banks to lend? They've dropped lending by $12 billion over the last year. So I wonder if you can give us an update on that.
First of all, I've now taken trips to Allentown, Pennsylvania, Elyria, Ohio, most recently. I was in Baltimore. Had a great time in Baltimore. Just recently, Nashua, New Hampshire. Haven't been to Searchlight yet, but we're going to get there. And everywhere I go, you talk to small business, and they will tell you they are still experiencing a severe credit crunch. The larger businesses right now are able to get financing. Even the medium-sized businesses, the credit markets have improved. Smaller businesses, even if they are making a profit and have not missed a payment, are finding that banks are adverse to providing them capital. Now, two reasons that they cite. One is they say their bankers are telling them that the regulators are just looking over their shoulder too much, and so the community banks feel that their hands are tied. These are independent regulators. They are diligent in doing their jobs. Obviously, they feel caught off guard because of the lax regulation in some cases of the banking industry before the financial crisis. You get a sense that the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction. The challenge that we've got is we've got to be careful because these are independent regulators and we don't want to politicize that. But what Treasury Secretary Geithner and others have done is to discuss with the regulators what we are hearing in the field and to make sure that there is a consistency of approach that doesn't prevent banks from making what are good loans and taking reasonable risks. So that's one thing we're hearing. The other thing, though, that is still out there is that the larger banks generally haven't been in this market. A lot of the smaller companies never had access to them in the first place, and we want to actually see if we can get more of those large banks to get into this marketplace. And when I met with the big bank CEOs, this was something that I pushed them on. They tell me, and we have seen some confirmation of this, that they are actually ramping up some of their small business lending and setting up more aggressive divisions, actively seeking out loans. So that's the effort that we're making to jawbone the private sector to do what it needs to do. In the meantime, You mentioned the specific proposals that we put forward. I do think it's better to do them through legislation than through executive order. TARP was a congressionally created structure with some fairly stringent guidelines in terms of how we were supposed to approach it. It shouldn't be hard to do, though. It's a pretty simple concept. Banks have repaid money. There's $30 billion that we could take that has already been repaid, immediately apply that to a fund so that small banks or community banks are able to provide their small business customers with greater lending. And I do think that getting that as part of a jobs package is priority number one. And I know I've already talked to Harry about this. My assumption is that if you combine that with the tax credits that we put in place for hiring, the provisions that we've talked about to incentivize weatherization programs that can immediately start hiring people to retrofit homes and businesses and help reduce our energy costs, taking some of those immediate steps now, I think will pay some big dividends down the road. And the timing of it is perfect because our job last year was to make sure the economy was growing. The economy is now growing. But what's happening is businesses, either because they can't find financing or because they're still just dipping their toe in the water, have been hesitant to hire full-time workers. And for us to start giving them some serious incentives, giving them additional access to financing, could accelerate a process that otherwise could take a much longer time. And frankly, all those folks out there who are out of work right now, they just can't afford to wait any longer. They need it now. All right.
We have time for